All right.
Yes.
Hi, Delph.
Hi, Ruth. Welcome
Love.
to my teaching room.
Thank you. I love the Poise
Yeah,
poster.
I was given this by my mother-in-law, who is
Mm.
actually an Alexander teacher, 96 year of age now.
Mm.
And she had all the books, so she gave everything to me. So
Mm.
lucky.
Oh,
So I
nice.
really, my pupils love this picture,
Yeah.
and it's just a simple image of an egg,
Yeah.
just like the word. I've always liked the word poise.
Yeah. It
It's
is.
very
It's really nice.
psychophysical.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get into the Alexander technique? And what did you do at the time and so on?
So, Ruth, I'll tell you a little bit about my teenage years, which led to the Alexander.
Yeah.
So, I'd always been interested in the arts, drama. I went to stage school, had a bit of a turbulent adolescence, but I always loved drama and enjoyed that singing, dancing, and being in theatrical performances. And then went on to study drama, and I decided also to do psychology because parallel to my interest in drama, I'd also had this increasing kind of awareness and interest in health,
Mm.
partly due to the fact that members of my family were becoming quite ill with quite chronic illnesses,
Oh.
not just physical ones, but my close relative was also developing mental health issues. So I always had this sort of anxiety that I didn't want to get these things and also to try and fix them. I was kind of busy looking for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was looking quite bizarre therapies to try and help them. And in my journey, I was kind of using it for myself, wide range of therapies. I was always interested from, crystal healing. I think I went through a phase of that, Reiki, all sorts of, tea groups at that time, psychodrama groups. I was throwing myself into lots of stuff because I had a growing interest in well-being and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on to do my degree in drama and psychology, came out of that and decided to become an occupational therapist. Went on to do some a sort of an assistant post in a psychiatric unit,
Mm-hmm.
where I met my husband, who was kind of doing also experience and work experience in this place. And then obviously we got together, and his mum at that point in time was, I think, age 60 and having Alexander lessons and beginning to embark on a training course with David Gorman. She'd given
That's
up
interesting.
work and her husband had just died. So when I met
Mm.
Jeff, his father had just died. So Alexander was something then that I kind of just dipped into. I asked her, what is this, Alexander? And she said, oh, just go and try, just go and experience it. So she recommended a group,
Mm-hmm.
which I attended, and I remember it vividly. It was this in someone's house, and she greeted me at the door. She was very quiet. The whole atmosphere was very, very quiet and peaceful. In fact, I just didn't know what was going on, quite frankly.
So that was an introductory.
It was an introductory group. There was about 6 people there, and there wasn't a whole lot of explanation, actually. I just remember walking. I mean, this was nearly 40 years ago.
Mm.
I was walking, I was lying down, the usual kind of activities that you do in introductory groups. The moment when I had that kind of bling moment was when she put her hands on my neck.
Mm.
I think this bubbling anxiety and bubbling nervous system that I'd had from quite a young age started to sort of quieten down. Of course, it didn't last. So from then, so I had this experience, and I thought this would be an interesting thing to pursue, but started to sort of look for teachers. But I was busy then, I was actually going to Oxford to study occupational therapy. I decided that, I was wanting financial security. It was a good profession. It did interest me. It was lots of different areas you can work in, and I never regret that. Actually, I still am involved in the NHS, and I really enjoy the work and the teams I've worked with, and many of them have actually come to me for lessons. I think my boss has been coming for lessons for 30 years. But anyway, to go back to Oxford, so then I found a teacher. I found myself very busy but stressed on the training, and I found a lovely teacher called Hillary Foxwell. Started having lessons, and again, I really used to feel fantastic after my lessons, very quiet, expanded, and helped me manage the stress of work and going on placements, and the increasing awareness of that, there was a possibility that I could feel different on a more permanent basis. Yeah, so then I qualified, got my job in London, was still with Jeff. And then I got this incredibly stressful job working in an acute hospital.
Oh, wow.
I really didn't enjoy it, but I did it. It was a very good experience.
Directly after your qualification?
Yeah, you kind of do something called a rotation to experience different areas. I did that for 2 years. But during that period, again, close relatives, they had these chronic illnesses, but they started to go downhill, sort of end of life care for, my mother, basically. Obviously, these grief moments awaken you, they change you. I embarked on therapy for myself, and I decided I need to do something very valuable with my life, and I was earning a bit more. There was a possibility there, so I knew Hillary Foxwell had trained at Misha Magidov. So I contacted him. He told me I had to see one of his teachers, who was a wonderful Rosalind Simmons, and that there was a year's waiting list. So I carried on seeing Rosalind Simmons until I started the training. And then I managed to work out my occupational therapy hours that I was just fitting around the training. Used to work Mondays and then do my Alexander training 9 to 1 o'clock, Tuesday to Friday. Then I used to dash off, hopefully with less of a rushy mind, to my OT job, which I'd found a bit of a niche, which I'm still in, which is working with in a health team for adults with autism, learning disabilities, and mental health problems. So I still work in that area, and I find it interesting. And as I said, the team all know what I do, and I've brought it into that kind of NHS team area. And I need to pay my mortgage. So Jeff was always a carer of the children's in moving on. So I've always been, the one to want to, the need to sort of, pay the bills, basically.
Yeah. And how did you manage these two quite demanding things? Like the training is quite...
Well, it was incredibly demanding because not only was, my mother died during the training, and so did my sister, who'd had mental health problems. She was a pharmacist, and she had a breakdown. It was awful. So it was incredibly demanding, but also very changing. It just really was a place where I felt so supported, and I could be with I felt very supported by Misha and the course, and the work was incredibly helpful to keep me on the road, to support me. It was a place, it was my happy place. I met my very close friend Katie Byro, wonderful teacher, And we used to lie there thinking we're in absolute heaven here because we'd both come from stressful jobs. It was an amazing progression of learning. It was very immersive. So it was a place where I could just leave the kind of, I had a place for my grief in my therapy and outside of the school. I brought it, it was obviously with me all the time, but it was a place where I could just focus on myself and my own learning. It felt very positive, like a very happy, positive experience to be supported to work around my own habits of bracing and reacting and just to be quiet. And my nervous system was, I felt calmer, much calmer, there. And I just, had to work. So I used to leave, it was fine. I worked, 2 to 5:30 every afternoon and then all day Monday. Some people, I think it's quite a good thing to work in the afternoons because you do, for me, it was a way where I could kind of bring some of the powers of inhibition which were growing in me. So my ability to not react to stuff and not get pulled into the stress that I had been reacting to in the past was growing, not all the time. There are people on the current training where I'm teaching, they work very hard. There's people that kind of work shifts till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, which I think is incredibly demanding. So I feel quite lucky, and I had Jeff's support, and the teachers were, such a huge variety of highly experienced teachers, all giving you something different.
Who was there?
So we had the wonderful Ilana Makova, who I later attended her birth and Alexander technique courses when I had my children. The wonderful Maya Galai. There was Rosalind Simmons. There was Paul Moore, who we still work with, who's still in the school. There was a great teacher called Andrew, who sadly died. Andrew, I've forgotten his surname, sorry. He was wonderful. It was a great team. And of course, Anthony Kingsley.
Yeah.
And it was a very big school, It was very big. There was always visitors, lots of lectures. It was a growing experience of, a very strong foundation, I'd say. A strong foundation in understanding all the key principles of the Alexander technique, the ability to inhibit, directions, faulty sensory awareness. All these principles were very alive in discussion. And the importance of working on yourself and the fact that when you leave the course, that's just the beginning. I remember Misha telling me this, that, many people fall off the wagon a bit because they, stop. They think, oh, I've got it now. No, they stop working on, but the importance of continuing to grow, developing those powers of inhibition, those superpowers.
So which was in your training the most important aspect for you?
Well, it's always going to be people, isn't it? The right people, and the sense that you are allowed to feel what you feel. The safety aspect of people being comfortable. That if you are, I don't actually remember crying that much in the course. I think I was a little bit shy about. I almost wanted that space to be. Where I used to take myself off, if I was feeling overwhelmed, and there were probably days I didn't go in when I was feeling overwhelmed, or I just had my own therapy. So I was quite good at looking after myself. And I think the most important part of the course was coming back to the work. You know, I wasn't there to discuss in depth my, you know, it was there, it was acknowledged, but I think Misha clearly knew that he'd stick with the work, and that's what I wanted. I wanted his hands, I wanted his words, and I wanted that from each and every one of the teachers.
Yeah.
That's something I've remembered, actually, even when I get pupils who are quite distressed coming here for lessons, that I can feel comfortable with how they feel, but I stay back, I stick, I'm there for the work, and they're there for the work. I mean, I will obviously listen if they need to talk, but people are there for the hands and the words and the experience of coming back. I love that expression of coming back to oneself, working on oneself, you know, back. And I started to notice how in my work environment I was able to stay back more and more in quite challenging meetings that I used to feel were pulling, you know, very quite stressful, would have been quite stressful in the past. I was able to stay back, and that enabled me to think more clearly.
Yeah.
You know, so psychophysical, one's ability to not get pulled into other people's dramas. The ability to stay back means you can listen more effectively. It means that, you know, you can look after yourself. You're not, you know, the whole thing about helping people can pull you into their space. In fact, I even did a YouTube thing on it, how I used to find talking in the NHS role quite exhausting, because I was pulling into people's dramas and reacting and bracing and stiffening. So my ability to look after myself and not do that, not get pulled into reactions and stress, grew. Yeah. And for that, I'll always be grateful.
And then you graduated at some point.
Graduated, got that piece of paper, was delighted. Oh, and I meant to say Odyssey. I'm really sorry, I didn't mention Odyssey. She was a profound influence as well. In fact, me and Katie are visiting Odyssey next year. Wonderful teacher. She's got a school in Paris. For our 30th anniversary of qualifying, we've decided to see Odyssey and spend some time in her school.
Fantastic.
So, and maybe Lorraine, who also qualified with us, will join us. We're not sure. So, I hope I haven't missed anyone out, if anyone's listening. But it was a fantastic team. So then to answer your question, I qualified. And that was a whole new, obviously, journey. Quite soon, I was asked to teach in the school, I'd say within months. That was very challenging. It's, again, one's powers of inhibition really have to be exorcised big time. At the same time, I was asking Anthony to run some groups around small working groups, which I think there was about 4 or 5 of us in that, and that was very transformative around, really about staying back, working on oneself, inhibition.
So continuing with the work or on a specific topic?
It was never a topic. It was just all around coming back to working on oneself, putting hands on, prevention of doing.
So
prevention of trying to fix people.
Yeah.
So which would reflect in one's hands.
Yeah.
Inhibition, refining one's ability to stay back, renew renew the directions, which becomes part of inhibition in my mind.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also got involved. Don't ask me how this happened, but I got involved in quite a big study in the NHS for the benefits of the Alexander technique in people with chronic ME who were hospitalised.
Mm.
And I just cannot remember how it began, but I did it for 6 months. I went into London Hospital, and I was paid to be part of this study, offering hands-on work twice a week to people who were practically bedridden. It was undoubtedly, the feedback was, this is, very useful, very helpful. In fact, quite a few of them, it was because they'd come from national all over the country. I remember a lot of them went on to have Alexander lessons when they were discharged.
Can I quickly ask, ME, is that the same as chronic fatigue?
It is yes, it's I think so. It was mixed up with psychiatric, the fact it was so chronic. I think these people had some psychiatric sort of issues as well.
So very severe cases.
Severe, mixed up with depression and anxiety disorders and eating disorders. These were very, very much on the highest level of ME. I mean, I call it ME. It was, these people were very disabled, and to the extent that they were actually in a psychiatric hospital in bed. So each person I would meet, they'd be in bed, and then they'd get up and they'd go to my room. They were able to move, but they'd spend the whole time in bed. So I think it was combined with some physio work, some goal setting from the OT. Weird that I was an OT and she was an OT, but anyway. So she had her role, and the psychiatrist, I think he was called Dr. White, he did a televised program about it, but sadly, it didn't say the Alexander technique, so I was quite cross about that. So I thought, I'm not doing that again. I thought this was, just for his research, and it wasn't in the end promoting the Alexander technique. So there was that. And I also spent lots of time learning from other teachers. I was quite keen to see how introductory groups were run. So I kind of offered my services to about 4 or 5 different teachers, watching how they did groups. And I did a few of my own, but have decided after, over a few years of doing that I was I'm more interested in one-to-one. And I also started teaching at the Bloomsbury Alexander Centre before teaching at home here. Okay. So meanwhile, I was teaching twice a week at Misha's with all this going on. Busy.
You are a very busy person. So OT, how much OT did you do at the time?
Well, I was just doing, I've always just, since qualifying, I was only just doing 1 or 2 days.
And 2 days at the school?
2 days at the school.
All your clients?
And clients. But in those days, I didn't have as many clients as I've got now. So on average now, I'm teaching about 15 to 17. But in those days, I remember feeling quite busy at 5. That was a good week.
Yeah, you have to build it up.
Building it up. I remember writing to all the GPs in my area, offering them a free introductory lesson. And I think one took me up, and then she started having lessons for about a year, and then sent me people after that. So that worked well. So I was quite keen on building up a practice and making it work. And then I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So that was a different journey.
When was that?
So that was about 2 years after working at Misha's. When during my pregnancy, I attended Ilana's course and went for regular lessons to Ilana. So I've later been interested in working with pregnancy, and it was invaluable throughout, and it does maintain, it promotes that healthy pregnancy, but obviously you can't be fixed around, wanting. I had both my boys at home, but I always, say to pupils, you do what's comfortable. I'm near a hospital. Usually if the pregnancy is going well, then, the birth can go well. So, and I've done also some small presentations and lectures in Anthony's school as well, because now I'm working in Anthony's school when Misha's school closed down. So I had the 2 boys, and that was a very busy time, juggling everything. Jeff did primarily the childcare, and I'd say I was the worker. So I had my lessons and
how did you manage that? Unbelievable.
I enjoyed it all. It was all things I was quite enjoying. I think if you enjoy it, you can be busy. Yeah, I carried on. I think having the children's a bit of a blur, actually, because it was such a busy time. It was a real juggling act. And again, I think it was a real test for one's inhibition. It's all incredibly good experience, isn't it? When you have to be busy, but keep the mind a little bit quiet. I think I also, parallel to this, have always been interested in meditation, and I went to a few silent retreats, which I would even go to. Jeff took care of the children. I kind of went 2 or 3 times, as for 3 or 4 day retreats. Didn't talk for 3 days, and that was also a very grounding, a good thing to do to keep me connected to myself when things got too stressful. And then my son, my husband's a guitarist and a musician and a jazz, he's a jazz guitarist. And then my son, who was, when he was about 8 or 9, asked my husband to teach him jazz. And then he basically proceeded to practice. Jeff said, you have to work hard at this if you want to be good. Put some hours in. So he practiced every day for years. And at the age of 12, he started to develop RSI. So I thought, well, hello, Alexander Technique mother. I suggested he come to me for lessons, my son, and he was never that interested in it. It was one of the things that mum did with clients coming in, and he absolutely responded, and the pain went away. And it's very funny because he used to have weekly lessons with me, and it was almost as if he didn't know me. He used to walk in going, we were very boundaried. I'd go, hello, how's your week been? And I'd just been speaking to him at breakfast, and he taught. It was very clear, very boundaried lesson.
Great.
And he really was very passionate about the technique, and he took it on quite a high level, I think. I even did a YouTube video of him playing. He took it on that level of really working around the musicality of flow and not trying, because the technical side was really, he was becoming very proficient around the technical aspect of jazz. And though I'm not a musician, he would say that the not trying aspect was something he would really use in his performance. And he got a lot of feedback from people around that, that he would be very calm. He still gets that. He's now we've just come back from New York. He got this master's in jazz in New York, and he's now building a jazz guitar career in New York, doing very well. So
he started as a kid already with Alexander.
Yeah, when he was 12, because he had pain.
That's amazing.
Through hours of practicing RSI, and he realised. So I had a lot of his friends coming, because he went to the Royal Academy. So I think I had a lot of his friends coming, because I think in the academy you only get one-to-one in the second year. Well, I'd get, I taught loads of his friends who went to the academy. though I'm not a musician, of course I can teach,
Yeah.
teach the Alexander technique to them. And they bring their issues, and it's just been a wonderful experience working with musicians. However, I'm not a musician, though I can play piano to a very basic, I think, grade 5 level, but nowhere near to the level of him, and he's way beyond my husband now.
So you gave him this name.
Yeah.
So did he have a chance to not become a musician?
Well, the other one, also incredibly proud of him, he's like 30th in England table tennis player. He was also, Miles was called Miles after Miles Davis, and Barney was after a guitarist called Barney Kessel. But he was also a talented pianist, but he went down the sports road. So he was less interested in the Alexander technique, but he's coming for lessons to me now. So a bit later, but he's beginning to develop, and it's fine as long as at some point he can, it's when it's the right time for people, isn't it?
Yeah. And of course it not always works when the parents
Oh God, you can't shove things on them, can you?
No.
They've got to be, same with jazz. Jeff didn't, he really did say to Jeff, teach me jazz. It was nothing to do with his name. But of course they were exposed to jazz. There was always jazz playing in the house. We were always going to gigs, Well, then obviously Misha had to close down the school.
Yeah.
Which was incredibly sad. His wife, Judith, wonderful woman. She went back to Israel very unwell, and he followed her. And Anthony set up his school, and I was absolutely delighted to be asked to teach in Anthony's school. Again, it's wonderful environment to teach in. It's very vibrant atmosphere with lots of discussion.
Yeah. And
I feel very privileged to be part of that, to be honest. It keeps the work alive when you're in a school. It enables you to work on yourself by teaching others. So you can't give what you haven't got.
Yeah. And I was privileged to have you as a teacher, as one of the teachers.
Oh, thanks, Ruth.
How long have you been doing that now?
I very much was when it started. So I think Anthony had his 20-year anniversary, and it was obviously in Balderton Street initially, and then moved very near to where I trained, literally a stone's throw from Misha's, which is lovely.
Yeah, that was in the pandemic. Because Balderton Street was too crowded with people.
Yeah.
So
and then, of course, the challenge of the pandemic and working online, that was a completely different eye-opener, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Remote Alexander. I mean, it's not for me, but I did have quite a few remote pupils who, to my surprise, benefited from having these remote lessons. But I mean, it's much better hands-on. Of course it's going to be, isn't it, with the hands and the words, but there's a lot to be said for the remote.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't reach
of course
a teacher.
The whole pandemic was an exploration for that for me. I didn't really, I would never have gone down that line of teaching remotely. I mean, I was teaching people from America. I remember I had a couple of pupils from America. I set up a remote group. I was really going for it, actually, big time with the remote. And it was interesting. But now back to in person. What was interesting, actually, was this woman started as a remote new person. And then when the pandemic was over, she came for lessons, and it was very odd. It's like she'd had some lessons.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, something in this, and obviously she was motivated to come for some lessons.
But maybe we can go on with a bit more of the content. So what would your current elevator pitch about what is the Alexander technique be for a person who has never heard about it?
Well, it depends how interested they are. So when someone asks, what do you do? And then you say, I teach the Alexander technique, and I may start with the very generic, it's how we use ourselves in daily life. And if they look interested, I'll carry on around habits, reactions, bracings, stress, the mind, body. But if they look disinterested, I'll stop there. You can tell when someone wants to know more, and then you give them more. Use of the self, I'm still not happy with that because it's so vague. People don't really understand. But I think, the word is reactions, habits, pulling into stuff, stress, losing your back. And people seem to understand that. Overdoing, how we overgrip and overdo in our muscular reactions, which is related to our nervous systems. So we learn to use ourselves more freely. The experience of learning, I always say it's within us already, but think of it's almost like layers, like an onion, layers of stuff. That it's within you, but it's what we do. So we're learning to reduce the level of doing in the system. I think that's fairly standard.
But everybody has a different explanation depending on the person, depending on the day.
Yes, what I say to you now will differ with what I say to someone tomorrow. Probably when I walk out the school and I've been teaching all morning, I'll just have a very clear and articulate summary. Right now in the weekend, it's probably not that clear.
Can I challenge you a bit more with the principles? So let's start with inhibition.
Well, it's, for me, for my understanding of inhibition, is the primary aspect of the work, is our ability to stay back, and within that the directions become almost like, I think Carrington called it a wish, a whisper. I use the word a whisper of staying back and up, directions, flow. So you can't do directions, we all know, and of course everyone wants to do them. When I qualified, I was very dewy around the directions, which is why I wanted to understand the aspect of inhibition in a more knowing way, more of a way of putting hands on, where I was able to think and allow the directions, which I see actually as preventative. The directions are like inhibition, preventative, whisper of a thought. Neck free means I'm not stiffening. To let the head lead forward and up means I'm not contracting, pulling down. To let the whole back lengthen and widen means I'm leaving myself alone. That's how I interpret. And so faulty sensory awareness is something as well that we're all interested in, that the wrong feels right, the right feels wrong, and that over time we're finely tuning the system, we're tuning ourselves to self-regulate, stay back and self-regulate, and it becomes easier. I think we sometimes forget what it's like to first have an Alexander lesson. So I think that is something that I'm really sort of tuning into at the moment with people. You get to a stage where you're kind of self-regulating, of course not all the time, but so understanding. It's such a long time ago when I first had my lesson, and you still remember the feeling of it, feeling quiet, different, more open. And it's important to, go back to that understanding of what someone feels like when they first have a lesson and the journey that they're going to be on, which is why I love teaching.
Primary control?
Primary control, it's just, it's psychophysical, it's a quality, isn't it? A condition it's more than the head, neck and back, it's the quality of the being, the person, involving the head, neck and back. It's our barometer for stress and reaction.
Yeah. So what's your biggest gain from the work?
Oh, health and happiness. It has made me very happy. I mean, even if it's days when I'm miserable, I'm sort of happy as well, because it's just enabled me. I think I would have, I'm not sure what kind of a parent I would have been, very reactive, and I am still like that sometimes. We're not perfect, but it has, when it enables you to be more yourself, comfortable in your own skin, that connects you with something quite deep, which is a source of joy.
Wonderful. That's a good point to stop, I think. On joy. Thank you so much, Delphine.
No, you're welcome, and I've loved talking to you, Ruth.
Thank you so much.